The gunshot echoed through the Arizona night just as Natalie Keller realized she had been walking in circles for the past hour, lost somewhere between Kingman and nowhere. Her hand pressed protectively against her stomach, where a secret grew that terrified her more than any outlaw ever could. She stumbled forward, her boots catching on sagebrush as another shot rang out, closer this time. The year was 1883, and women did not travel alone after dark, especially not women carrying the kind of secret that could ruin reputations and destroy futures. But Natalie had left the boarding house in town 3 hours ago, needing space to think, to breathe, to figure out how she would tell Kellen Lawson the truth that had been eating at her for weeks now. The moonlight cast long shadows across the desert landscape, and she could see the outline of buildings in the distance. Not Kingman, she realized with a sinking heart. She had walked in entirely the wrong direction. Her breath came faster, panic rising in her chest. She had been working as a schoolteacher in Kingman for 8 months now, and in that time, she had done something she never thought herself capable of. She had fallen deeply, irrevocably in love with a cowboy who worked the cattle ranch just outside of town. Kellen Lawson was not the kind of man her family back in Boston would have approved of. He was rough around the edges, spoke plainly, and made his living with his hands and his strength. But he had kind eyes the color of summer grass, and when he smiled at her during their chance meetings in town, something inside her chest felt like it might burst open with joy. Their courtship had been brief but intense, stolen moments behind the general store, evening walks along the creek, and one perfect night 3 months ago when everything had changed between them. She had not seen him since. He had taken a job driving cattle north to Prescott, a journey that would take weeks, maybe months. And now she carried his child and he did not even know, and she was lost in the desert with gunshots echoing around her and tears streaming down her face. "Miss, you all right out there?" The voice made her jump, spinning around to find a man on horseback approaching slowly, his hands visible and empty of weapons. Even in the dim light, she recognized him. Kellen Lawson, returned from wherever the trail had taken him, looking dusty and tired and like the answer to every prayer she had not known how to speak. "Kellen." Her voice broke on his name. He was off his horse in an instant, closing the distance between them with long strides. "Natalie, what in God's name are you doing out here? Those shots, there are cattle thieves working this area. It is not safe." Up close, she could see he looked thinner, his face darkened by the sun, a new scar above his left eyebrow. But his eyes were the same, filled with concern as he looked her over, checking for injuries. "I was walking. I got lost. I needed to think." The words tumbled out in a rush and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. She had imagined this reunion 100 different ways, but never like this. Never with her dress dusty and her hair falling from its pins and her secret pressing against her ribs like a living thing demanding to be known. "Think about what? What is wrong?" His hands were on her shoulders now, steady and warm, and she wanted to collapse against him but held herself rigid instead. "When did you get back?" she asked, delaying the inevitable. "About 3 hours ago. I went straight to your boarding house, but Mrs. Patterson said you had gone for a walk. I have been searching for you." His thumb brushed against her cheek, wiping away tears. "I have missed you something fierce, Natalie. Every day on that trail, all I could think about was getting back to you." "You could have written," she said, and hated how small her voice sounded. "I did write." 3 letters. Did you not receive them?" She shook her head, confusion cutting through her panic. "I received nothing." His jaw tightened. "That explains why you did not write back. I thought perhaps you had changed your mind about us, about me." "Changed my mind." She stared at him, this man she loved with an intensity that frightened her. "Kellen, I have thought of nothing but you since you left. I have counted the days. I have hoped and prayed you would return safely. Then what has you out here crying in the desert?" His voice was gentle, but she could hear the worry underneath. This was it, the moment she had been dreading and longing for in equal measure. She took a shaking breath, pressed her hand more firmly against her stomach, and met his eyes. "I am with child," she whispered. "Your child. I have known for certain for about 6 weeks now, though I suspected before that. I was so afraid to tell you. I know we are not married, and I know this will ruin my reputation, and I know you might not want this, but I needed you to know because I cannot hide it much longer, and I do not know what to do." The words poured out of her like water from a broken dam, and when she finally fell silent, she could not read the expression on his face. The night seemed to hold its breath around them. Another gunshot echoed in the distance, but neither of them flinched. Kellen's hands moved from her shoulders to cup her face, his calloused palms rough against her skin. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "I have been hoping you would." She blinked, certain she had misheard. "What?" "I have been hoping you would tell me you are carrying my child. I have been hoping you would give me a reason to ask you what I have wanted to ask since the first time I saw you walking past the livery stable with your books under your arm and the sun in your hair." He dropped to one knee right there in the desert dirt, still holding her hands. "Natalie Keller, will you marry me? Will you make me the happiest man in Arizona and be my wife?" Her legs felt weak. "You want this. You want the baby. I want everything with you." His voice was fierce now, certain. "I want to marry you proper, in the church in Kingman with the whole town watching. I want to build you a house with enough rooms for all the children we might have. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to watch you grow round with our baby and be there when the child comes into this world. I have wanted all of this since that night by the creek, but I thought I should wait, court you properly, save more money. But if you are carrying my child, then there is no reason to wait another day. You are not angry." She could barely speak past the tears. "Angry, Natalie, I am grateful. I am blessed beyond measure. I was terrified during those weeks away that I would come back and find you had moved on, found someone more respectable, someone educated like you. Instead, I come back to find you carrying my child, and it feels like a gift I do not deserve." She pulled him to his feet and kissed him with all the pent-up fear and relief and love that had been building inside her for months. He kissed her back just as fiercely, his arms wrapping around her waist, holding her close. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Say yes, please say yes." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you, yes to everything." He let out a whoop of joy that echoed across the desert, then swung her up in his arms, spinning her around until she was laughing and crying at the same time. When he set her down, he immediately dropped to his knees again and pressed his ear gently against her stomach. "Can you hear anything?" she asked, running her fingers through his hair. "Not yet, but I will. In a few months I will be able to hear our baby's heartbeat, and it will be the most beautiful sound in the world." He pressed a kiss to her stomach through the fabric of her dress, then stood and pulled her close again. "We need to get you back to town and out of danger. Those cattle thieves are getting bolder." As if to punctuate his words, more gunshots rang out, definitely closer now. Kellen lifted her onto his horse, then swung up behind her, his arm secure around her waist. "Hold on tight," he murmured against her ear, and then they were riding hard toward Kingman, the desert night rushing past them. They rode in silence for a while, Natalie leaning back against Kellen's solid chest, feeling safer than she had in months. Eventually, curiosity got the better of her. "You said you wrote me 3 letters. What did they say?" She felt him smile against her hair. "The first one was mostly about the trail, the work, how much I missed you. The second one was longer. I told you about
This
how I
story
had
was
been
posted on
saving
the
money,
channel The
how
Rusty
I had already
Saddle.
talked
Please
to
do not
Samuel
repost it
Morse
in any
about buying
form.
that piece of land south of his ranch. I told you I was building something, trying to make something of myself so I could offer you a real life. And the third letter. His arm tightened around her. The third letter was the hardest to write. I told you I loved you. I told you I had loved you from the moment you corrected my grammar in the general store and then apologized for being presumptuous. I told you I knew I was not good enough for you, but I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to be. And I asked if, when I returned, you would let me court you properly with the intention of marriage. Natalie felt fresh tears spill down her cheeks. I never received any of them. I thought you had forgotten about me. Forget you. Impossible. You are burned into my heart, Natalie. There has not been a moment since I met you that I have not carried you with me. They rode into Kingman as the church bells were tolling midnight. The streets were mostly empty, just a few late-night patrons stumbling out of the saloon. Kellen guided the horse to the boarding house where Natalie rented a small room, but instead of helping her down, he kept riding. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To the preacher's house." "We are getting married tonight." "Tonight? But Kellen, it is the middle of the night. We cannot wake Reverend Matthews at this hour." "We absolutely can, and we will. I am not spending another night without you as my wife, not now that I know you are carrying our child. It is not proper, and more than that, I do not want to wait. Do you?" She thought about her small, lonely room at the boarding house. She thought about all the nights she had lain awake worrying about the future, about how she would tell Kellen, about whether he would want her and their child. And now here he was, saying he had been hoping for exactly this, offering her everything she had not dared to dream of. "No," she said firmly. "I do not want to wait either." Reverend Matthews was understandably bewildered when Kellen pounded on his door at midnight. But he was a kind man who had known Kellen since he was a boy. When Kellen explained the situation, or at least the parts that were necessary to explain, the Reverend's wife bustled around finding witnesses. The Reverend pulled on his coat over his nightshirt, and within the hour, Natalie and Kellen were standing in the small church saying their vows. Mrs. Matthews had pressed a handful of wildflowers into Natalie's hands, and someone had lit the candles at the altar, and in the flickering golden light, Kellen looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "I, Kellen James Lawson, take you, Natalie Rose Keller, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said, his voice steady and sure. "I promise to love you, honor you, protect you, and provide for you all the days of my life. I promise to be a good father to our children and a good husband to you. I promise that you will never doubt my love or my commitment. This I swear before God and these witnesses." When it was her turn, Natalie's voice shook with emotion, but she got through the vows, promising to love and honor him, to stand by his side, to build a life with him. And when Reverend Matthews pronounced them husband and wife, Kellen kissed her with such tenderness that Mrs. Matthews had to dab at her eyes with her handkerchief. They signed the marriage certificate, and Natalie stared at her new name, Natalie Lawson. She was a married woman now. She was Kellen's wife, and instead of the shame and fear she had been carrying for weeks, she felt only joy. Kellen had a room at the small hotel on Main Street, and that was where they went, climbing the stairs hand in hand. Inside, he lit the lamp and then turned to her, suddenly looking uncertain. "Are you truly all right with all this happening so fast? I did not give you time to plan a proper wedding or invite anyone. Your family does not even know." Natalie set down the flowers and took his hands. "My family is in Boston, and we have not been close since I moved west. They thought teaching school in Arizona was beneath me. They will probably think marrying a cowboy is even more beneath me. but I do not care what they think. I love you, Kellen. I have loved you for months. And yes, everything happened fast tonight, but it feels right. Does it not feel right to you? It feels like coming home, he said softly. It feels like everything I have been working toward my whole life just fell into place. She reached up and touched the new scar above his eyebrow. How did this happen, ornery steer? It is nothing. Everything about you is something to me. She traced the scar gently. I want to know every story, every detail. I want to learn every part of you. We have time for that now. We have the rest of our lives. He kissed her again, and this time there was no reason to hold back, no reason to stop. They were married now, bound together legally and spiritually. When he carefully began unbuttoning her dress, his hands were gentle, reverent. I will not hurt you or the baby, he asked, hesitating. No. The doctor said everything is fine as long as I am careful. You saw a doctor last week. I wanted to be certain before I told you. Well, before I tried to figure out how to tell you. He finished unbuttoning her dress and slid it off her shoulders, his eyes never leaving her face. You must have been so scared going through this alone. I was terrified, she admitted. I did not know what you would say or do. I did not know if you would want this. I feared you would think I had trapped you. Trapped me. He cupped her face in his hands. Natalie, you have freed me. Before you, I was just going through the motions of life, working and drifting and not really living. You make me want to be better, do better. You make me want to build something lasting. And now we are going to have a child together, and I cannot think of anything more perfect. They made love slowly, carefully, Kellen treating her like she might break, murmuring words of love against her skin. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the narrow hotel bed, her head on his chest, his hand resting protectively on her stomach. When is the baby due? He asked into the darkness. Early March, the doctor thinks, maybe late February. That gives us about 5 months, enough time to build a house and get everything ready. You are truly going to build a house. I already started. That is part of why I took the job driving cattle north. The pay was good and I needed the money for materials. The land is already mine. I bought it 6 months ago, right after I met you. I knew even then that I wanted something permanent, something real. I wanted to have something to offer you. Natalie propped herself up on her elbow to look at him. You have always been enough, Kellen. You have always had something to offer me. Your land, your house, your money, none of that matters compared to your heart. You deserve the world. I might not be able to give you that, but I can give you a good home and a good life. I can give you my complete devotion. I can give you honesty and loyalty and love that will never fade. That is all I have ever wanted. She kissed him softly. Just you, just this. They fell asleep wrapped around each other. And for the first time in weeks, Natalie slept without nightmares, without fear, without the weight of her secret pressing down on her chest. Morning came bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the hotel window. Kellen was already awake, watching her with an expression so full of love that it made her breath catch. "Good morning, Mrs. Lawson," he said, and she could hear the joy in his voice. "Good morning, husband. How are you feeling? Any sickness?" "Not too bad this morning. It comes and goes. Usually worse in the early morning and late evening." He brushed her hair back from her face. "What can I do to help? You are already doing it. Just being here, that is everything." They dressed and went down to breakfast at the hotel dining room. Several people stared at them, clearly curious about why Kellen Lawson and the schoolteacher were having breakfast together at the hotel. By noon, the whole town would know they had married. The thought might have worried Natalie yesterday, but today she wore her new status with pride. After breakfast, Kellen took her to the general store. "You need a proper wedding ring," he said. "Something that tells everyone you are taken." The selection was limited, but there was a simple gold band that fit her finger perfectly. Kellen also bought her a warm shawl, new gloves, and insisted on getting fabric so she could make herself new
This
dresses as she
story
grew
was
with the
posted on the
baby.
channel The Rusty
"You did not
Saddle.
have to
Please
buy
do
me
not
all this,"
repost it
she
in any
protested,
form.
even as she ran her fingers over the beautiful blue calico. "I want to. Let me do this for you." His eyes were pleading, and she realized how important it was to him to be able to provide, to take care of her. "All right. Thank you." They spent the rest of the morning walking around Kingman, Kellen introducing her as his wife to everyone they met. Some people were surprised, others looked disapproving, but most offered congratulations. By afternoon, word had spread to the school board, and Natalie received a visit from Mr. Henderson, the chairman. "Mrs. Lawson," he said, his tone formal and cold, "I am afraid I have some unfortunate news. The school board has voted, and we cannot have a married woman teaching. It would not be proper, especially given your condition." Natalie felt her face flame with embarrassment. "How did you know about my condition, Mrs. Patterson from your boarding house mentioned you had been ill in the mornings. She put two and two together when she heard about your sudden marriage." His expression was stern. "You understand this puts us in a difficult position." Before Natalie could respond, Kellen stepped forward. "My wife will not be needing the teaching position any longer. She will be busy running our household and preparing for our child. Thank you for your time, Mr. Henderson." He steered Natalie away before she could say anything else. Once they were out of earshot, he turned to her. "I know you loved teaching. I am sorry. It is all right." She was surprised to find she meant it. "I did love teaching, but I love this more. I love being your wife. I love that we are going to have a family together. The teaching was just a job. This is a life." "You can always teach our children," he said with a smile. "And maybe when they are older, if you want to teach again, things will be different." They collected Natalie's few belongings from the boarding house, Mrs. Patterson watching with pursed lips and disapproving eyes. Natalie ignored her, focusing instead on packing her books, her clothes, and the few personal items she had accumulated during her time in Kingman. "Is this everything?" Kellen asked, looking at the two small trunks that contained her entire life. "I did not bring much when I came from Boston. I wanted a fresh start." "Well, you have got that now." He lifted the trunks easily. "Come on, I want to show you something." They rode out of town heading south, the afternoon sun warm on their backs. After about 30 minutes, Kellen guided the horse off the main road onto a smaller trail. They crested a small rise and Natalie gasped. Spread out before them was a beautiful valley, green with grass despite the Arizona heat, with a creek running through it. And there, near a stand of cottonwood trees, was the beginning of a house. The foundation was laid and the framing had started, enough that she could see what it would become. "This is ours," she breathed. "All ours. 40 acres of good land, water rights to the creek, and plenty of room for cattle. I have been working on the house every spare moment. With your help, or at least your supervision, since you should not be doing heavy work in your condition, we can have it finished before the baby comes." Natalie slid down from the horse and walked slowly toward the house frame, trying to imagine it completed. "How many rooms?" "I planned for 4. A main room for cooking and living, a bedroom for us, and 2 smaller rooms for children. But I can add more if you want. The design is flexible." "It is perfect." She turned to face him, tears in her eyes again. Happy tears this time. "You built this for me, for us, for our family." He joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. "I know it is not much yet, but it will be. I promise you, Natalie, I am going to build you a beautiful home. It might take time, but I will make this place everything you deserve." She leaned into him, looking out at the valley, at the creek sparkling in the sunlight, at the wide blue sky overhead. "It is already everything I deserve because you are here, because we are together." They spent the rest of the afternoon walking the property, Kellen pointing out where he wanted to build the barn, where the cattle would graze, where Natalie might plant a garden if she wanted. He showed her the creek, which was deeper than it looked, with clear, cold water that came down from the mountains. It never runs dry, he explained, even in the worst heat of summer. That was one of the reasons I wanted this land. Reliable water is everything out here. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they sat together under the cottonwood trees, Kellen's arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. "I cannot believe this is my life now," Natalie said softly. 24 hours ago, I was terrified and alone. Now I am married to the man I love and we are sitting on our own land, planning our future together. It feels like a dream. It is real. I promise you, it is all real." He kissed the top of her head, "and it is only going to get better." They rode back to town as darkness fell, returning to the hotel where Kellen still had his room. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. They would rise early, have breakfast, and then head out to the property. Kellen worked on the house while Natalie organized supplies, took measurements for curtains and furnishings, and began planning how to make the skeleton of a house into a real home. She wrote to her family in Boston, a carefully worded letter explaining that she had married and was expecting a child. She did not expect much of a response. Her parents had made their disappointment clear when she chose to move west and take a teaching position instead of making an advantageous marriage back home. But she wanted them to know, wanted to give them the chance to be part of her new life, even if she suspected they would choose not to be. Within a week of their marriage, Kellen hired 2 men from town to help with the heavy construction work. With their assistance, the house began to take shape quickly. Walls went up, a roof was framed, windows were installed. Each day brought visible progress, and Natalie found herself growing more excited about moving into their home. She also found herself growing more visibly pregnant. By late October, she was starting to show, her dresses getting tight around the middle. Kellen seemed fascinated by the changes in her body, constantly asking if she was feeling all right, if the baby was moving yet, if there was anything she needed. "You are going to drive yourself mad with worry," she told him one afternoon as he fretted about her climbing the stairs at the hotel. "I cannot help it. You are carrying the most precious thing in the world. I want to make sure you are both safe and healthy." His devotion was endearing if sometimes overwhelming, but Natalie found she loved being cared for, loved having someone who put her needs first. It was a new experience and one she treasured. By mid-November, the house was finished enough that they could move in. The walls were up, the roof was on, the windows had glass in them. The floors were rough but functional, and there was a large stone fireplace that Kellen had built himself, working late into the night to get it done. They moved their few belongings in on a bright Tuesday morning. Natalie stood in the main room, looking at the space that would be their kitchen and living area, and felt a swell of emotion so strong it nearly knocked her over. "This is home," she whispered. Kellen came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her, his hands resting on her now noticeable stomach. "This is home," he agreed. Over the next few weeks, they worked together to make the house comfortable. Kellen built furniture, simple but sturdy pieces that would serve them well. A bed frame for their bedroom, a table and chairs for the kitchen, a rocking chair that he insisted Natalie would want when the baby came. Natalie sewed curtains from the fabric they had bought, made quilts for their bed, and slowly transformed the bare rooms into something warm and welcoming. They also began to build relationships with their neighbors. Samuel Morris and his wife Emma lived on the neighboring ranch, and they came by one Sunday afternoon with a basket of food and offers of help. "We are glad to have young folks settling here," Samuel said, shaking Kellen's hand warmly. "This valley needs good people." Emma, who was a motherly woman in her 50s, took Natalie aside. "How far
This
along
story
are
was
you,
posted
dear?"
on the
"About
channel The
5
Rusty
months now."
Saddle. Please
"And
do
you have a
not
doctor?"
repost it in any
"Dr.
form.
Fletcher in Kingman has been seeing me." Emma nodded approvingly. "Good man. But you should know when your time comes. If you need help and cannot get to town, I have helped bring many babies into this world. My own 4, plus I have been a midwife for others. You send Kellen for me if you need me." "Thank you," Natalie said, feeling relief wash over her. She had been worrying about the practicalities of giving birth so far from town, but knowing Emma was nearby eased some of that fear. As winter settled over Arizona, Natalie and Kellen settled into married life. They developed routines, learned each other's habits and preferences. She learned that he liked his coffee strong and black, that he always woke before dawn, that he hummed while he worked. He learned that she read before bed every night, that she had a sharp sense of humor that caught him off guard and made him laugh, that she was braver than she appeared and stronger than even she knew. The baby began to move regularly, and Kellen spent many evenings with his hand pressed to Natalie's stomach, feeling the kicks and rolls of their child. "You think it is a boy or a girl?" he asked one night as they lay in bed, the fire crackling in the next room. "I do not know." "What do you hope for?" "Healthy. That is all I care about. Healthy baby, healthy wife, that is all I could ask for." "But if you had to choose—" He was quiet for a moment, his hand tracing gentle circles on her stomach. "A girl, a daughter with your intelligence and your kindness. A daughter I can teach to be strong and independent. A daughter who will know she is loved every single day of her life." Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. "You are going to be such a good father." "I am going to try. My own father was not around much, drank too much when he was. I want to be different. I want our children to know they can count on me." Christmas came, and they celebrated quietly in their home. Kellen had managed to find a small tree, and Natalie decorated it with strings of popcorn and paper ornaments. They did not have much money for gifts, but Kellen had carved her a beautiful jewelry box, and she had knitted him a warm scarf. They cooked a simple meal together and spent the evening by the fire, talking about what the next Christmas would be like with a baby. "We will have to teach them about Santa Claus," Natalie said, smiling at the thought. "And we will leave out cookies and milk, and they will be so excited they will not be able to sleep." "You are getting ahead of yourself. The baby will only be about 9 months old next Christmas. Too young for Santa Claus. Then the Christmas after that. We have time. We have so much time ahead of us." As January arrived and Natalie entered her 8th month of pregnancy, things began to feel very real. The baby was active now, and she could sometimes see the movements from the outside, her stomach rippling as the child shifted position. Dr. Fletcher came out to the ranch to check on her, making the trip at Kellen's insistence despite the winter weather. "Everything looks good," he told them after his examination. "The baby is in the right position, and your wife is healthy and strong. I would say you have maybe 4 to 6 more weeks." After the doctor left, Kellen became even more attentive if that was possible. He barely let Natalie lift a finger, insisting on doing all the heavy work around the house. She humored him, understanding that his protectiveness came from love. One cold February morning, Natalie woke to find the first signs that labor might be approaching. She did not say anything to Kellen right away, not wanting to worry him when it might be nothing. But as the day progressed, the sensations grew stronger and more regular. By evening, she knew. The baby was coming. "Kellen," she said calmly as he was stoking the fire, "you need to go get Emma." He turned to her, his eyes wide. "Now, the baby is coming now." "Yes, now." He stared at her for a moment, seeming frozen in place, then suddenly sprang into action. He helped her into the bedroom, made sure she was comfortable, then ran out to saddle his horse. She could hear him racing away toward the Morris ranch. And then the house was quiet except for the crackling of the fire and her own breathing. The contractions were still far apart, but they were definite and growing stronger. Natalie tried to remember everything the doctor had told her, everything she had read in the books she had borrowed. She breathed through the pain, tried to stay calm. Kellen returned with Emma in record time. The older woman bustled in, immediately taking charge of the situation. "All right, dear, let me take a look at you," she said, helping Natalie out of her dress and into a nightgown. She did a quick examination and nodded. "You are doing fine. First babies take time, so do not expect anything quick, but everything looks normal and healthy." Kellen hovered in the doorway, looking pale. "What can I do?" "Keep the fire going, boil water, and stay out of the way unless we call for you," Emma said firmly but kindly. "This is women's work, and you will just make yourself sick with worry." Labor was long and difficult. The contractions grew closer together and more intense as the night wore on. Natalie tried to be brave, tried not to scream, but eventually the pain was too much and she could not hold back. She cried out, and immediately Kellen was there, despite Emma's orders to stay out of the room. "I am here," he said, taking her hand. "I am right here. You should not be here," Natalie gasped between contractions. "This is not proper." "I do not care about proper. You are my wife. This is my child. I am staying." Emma looked like she might argue, then shrugged. "Fine. But if you faint, I am leaving you on the floor." He did not faint. He stayed by Natalie's side through the whole ordeal, holding her hand, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth, whispering words of encouragement. She squeezed his hand so hard she was sure she must be hurting him, but he never complained, never pulled away. As dawn broke on February 15th, 1884, their baby was born. A boy, healthy and squalling, with a shock of dark hair and Kellen's green eyes. "You have a son," Emma announced, placing the baby on Natalie's chest. Natalie looked down at the tiny person she had carried for 9 months and felt love so overwhelming she could barely breathe. Kellen was crying openly, tears streaming down his face as he looked at their child. "He is perfect," Kellen whispered, his finger gently touching the baby's tiny hand. The baby immediately grasped his finger, holding on tight. "Look at that. He is already strong." Emma cleaned up efficiently, showing Natalie how to nurse the baby, making sure both mother and child were doing well. "You did beautifully, dear. And you, Kellen Lawson, you surprised me. Not many men have the stomach for childbirth." "I would not have missed it for the world," Kellen said, his eyes never leaving his wife and son. After Emma left, promising to check on them the next day, Natalie and Kellen spent hours just staring at their baby. They had discussed names during the pregnancy, but now that he was here, real and solid and theirs, they needed to decide. "What about Kyle?" Natalie suggested. "Kyle James Lawson, after your middle name." "Kyle," Kellen repeated, testing it out. He looked down at the sleeping baby in his arms. "Kyle Lawson, I like it. It is strong." "Good. Kyle it is, then." The baby proved to be relatively easy as babies went. He nursed well, slept in reasonably long stretches, and seemed content as long as he was warm and fed. Kellen was a devoted father from the first moment, constantly holding Kyle, talking to him, singing to him. Natalie watched her husband with their son and fell even more in love with him, something she had not thought possible. The weeks after Kyle's birth were exhausting but joyful. Natalie recovered slowly, her body tired from the ordeal of labor. Kellen took over most of the household tasks, cooking, cleaning, and caring for the animals, only handing the baby to Natalie when he needed to nurse. Emma visited regularly, bringing food and advice and offers of help. As March arrived and the weather began to warm, Natalie regained her strength. She was able to take on more of the household duties again.
This story was
though
posted
Kellen
on the channel
remained
The Rusty
intensely
Saddle.
helpful,
Please do not
never
repost
wanting
it
her
in
to
any
overdo
form.
it. One evening in mid-March, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Kyle asleep in Kellen's arms, Natalie reflected on how much her life had changed in less than a year. "You remember the night you found me in the desert?" she asked. "I will never forget it. I was terrified something had happened to you. I was so afraid to tell you about the baby. I thought you would be angry or feel trapped or reject me." He looked at her seriously. "I meant what I said that night. I had been hoping you would tell me exactly that. I had been praying, actually, during those weeks on the trail. Praying that when I got back, you would still want me. Praying that maybe there would be a reason we had to get married right away. I know that sounds strange, maybe even wrong, but I wanted you so much, Natalie. I wanted a life with you so badly. And when you told me about Kyle, it felt like God had answered my prayers. You never told me you had been praying for that. I was afraid you would think I was crazy, but it is true. I wanted to marry you from the first moment we really talked. You remember that day in the general store, when I corrected your grammar?" She smiled at the memory. "I was buying supplies, and you were there getting books for the school. I said something was for fixing the corral, and you very politely mentioned that it should be to fix the corral. Most women would have just ignored me or looked down on me for not speaking properly. But you smiled and said it kindly, and then you apologized for being presumptuous. I fell in love with you right then and there. That was 10 months ago. Best 10 months of my life." He shifted Kyle carefully, then reached over to take Natalie's hand. "Every single day with you has been a gift. Even the hard days, even the scary moments, I would not trade any of it. Neither would I." She squeezed his hand. "I love you, Kellen Lawson. I love our life together. I love our son. I love everything we are building here. I love you too. More than I can put into words." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of red and gold. Kyle stirred in Kellen's arms, making small baby noises, then settled again, content. As spring progressed into summer, they continued to work on improving the ranch. Kellen bought a small herd of cattle with money he had saved, and they began the real work of ranching. It was hard work, demanding and exhausting, but it was theirs. Every fence they mended, every calf that was born, every improvement to the property was an investment in their future. Natalie managed the household and cared for Kyle, who was growing rapidly. By summer, he was smiling and laughing, his personality beginning to emerge. He was a happy baby, quick to smile, fascinated by everything around him. Kellen spent every spare moment with him, teaching him, playing with him, telling him stories about the ranch and the land they lived on. In July, a letter arrived from Boston. Natalie's hands shook as she opened it, unsure what to expect. Her mother's handwriting was neat and precise, the words formally polite. They acknowledged the marriage and the birth of their grandson, but made it clear they did not approve of her choices. They would not be visiting Arizona, and they did not expect her to return to Boston. It was, essentially, a letter cutting her off from the family. Kellen found her crying on the porch, the letter crumpled in her hand. "What is wrong?" he asked, immediately concerned. She handed him the letter, unable to speak. He read it quickly, his expression darkening with anger. "They are fools," he said finally. "They do not deserve you or Kyle. They are my family. No, we are your family now, me and Kyle, and we love you more than they ever could." He pulled her into his arms, letting her cry against his chest. "I am sorry they hurt you, but we do not need them. We have each other, and that is enough." She knew he was right. It still hurt, the rejection from her parents, but it did not devastate her the way it might have a year ago. She had built a new life here, a better life, with people who truly cared about her. The Morris family had essentially adopted them, treating them like the children they never had. The small community of ranchers in the valley looked out for each other, helped each other. She had friends now, real friends who valued her for who she was, not for her family connections or her education. That evening, after Kyle was asleep, Natalie and Kellen sat together and wrote a response to her parents. It was brief and polite, thanking them for their letter, telling them a little about Kyle and the ranch, and making it clear that while they would always welcome contact, they did not need approval or support. It was a letter of closure, a way of saying goodbye to that part of her life. As summer turned to fall, they celebrated Kyle's first half-birthday with a small party. Emma and Samuel came, along with a few other neighbors. It was a simple celebration, but it was filled with love and laughter. Kyle, now 6 months old and sitting up on his own, was the center of attention, delighting everyone with his babbling and his big gummy smiles. "You two have done well for yourselves," Samuel said to Kellen as they stood watching the women fuss over the baby. "A good ranch, a beautiful wife, a healthy son. You are blessed, young man. I know it. Every single day I know how blessed I am." That night, after their guests had left and Kyle was asleep, Natalie and Kellen lay in bed talking. "Are you happy?" he asked, playing with her hair. "Happier than I ever thought possible. Why do you ask?" "Sometimes I worry. You gave up a lot to be with me. Your teaching career, your family, the comfort of living in town. You are out here in the middle of nowhere, working hard every day with none of the nice things you could have had." "Kellen, look at me." She waited until he met her eyes. "I have everything I want. This life might be hard sometimes, but it is real and it is ours. I do not miss Boston or teaching or any of that. I wake up every morning next to the man I love, and I spend my days caring for our son and building our home. What more could I possibly want? More children, maybe." He said it tentatively, like he was afraid to presume. She smiled. "Are you asking if I want more children?" "I am asking if you would consider it. I know pregnancy and childbirth were hard on you. I know Kyle is still young. But someday, if you wanted to give him siblings, I would like that." "I would like that too. Not right away, but yes, I want more children with you. I want a big family, lots of noise and chaos and love." His face broke into a wide grin. "Really, really. 2 or 3 more if we are blessed enough." He kissed her deeply, and she could feel his joy, his relief. They made love slowly, quietly, mindful of the sleeping baby in the next room. And Natalie thought about how far they had come from that night in the desert when she had been so afraid to tell him her secret. October brought Natalie's 25th birthday. Kellen surprised her with a new dress he had somehow managed to buy without her knowing, and a beautiful leather-bound journal. "For writing down everything," he explained. "Stories about Kyle, about the ranch, about our life together. So someday when we are old, we can remember all of this." She started writing that night, chronicling their story from the beginning. How they met, how they fell in love, the night she told him about the baby, their midnight wedding. She wrote about Kyle's birth, about their daily life, about the small moments that made up their happiness. It became a habit, writing a little bit every few days, capturing their life in words. As winter approached again, they prepared for Kyle's first Christmas. He was 9 months old now, crawling everywhere, pulling himself up on furniture, getting into everything. He was curious and active and kept them both constantly busy. On Christmas morning, Kellen had surprised her by building a wooden rocking horse for Kyle. It was beautifully crafted, smooth and sturdy, clearly a labor of love. Kyle was still too small to really use it, but he laughed and clapped when he saw it, and Kellen lifted him onto it, holding him steady while pretending to make the horse gallop. "You are going to be a rancher like your daddy," Kellen said to Kyle, who babbled back happily. "You are going to help with the cattle and ride horses and work this land." Natalie watched them together, her heart so full it felt like it might overflow. This was everything she had ever wanted, even when she had not known she wanted it. This was home. This was family. This was love. As 1885 began, they settled into the rhythm of ranch life. The cattle were thriving, and Kellen was able to sell several head for good prices. The money allowed them to make more improvements to the house and buy better equipment for the ranch. They were not wealthy by any means, but they were comfortable, and that was enough. Kyle celebrated his first birthday in February with another small party. He took his first steps a week later,
This
tottering
story was
between
posted
Kellen
on the
and
channel
Natalie,
The Rusty
shrieking
Saddle.
with
Please
delight
do
at
not
his
repost it
accomplishment.
in any form.
From that point on, he was constantly moving, exploring everything, getting into everything. In April, Natalie realized she was pregnant again. She waited a few weeks to be sure, then told Kellen one evening after Kyle was asleep. "We are going to have another baby," she said simply. His face lit up with joy. "Truly, truly. The doctor says I am about 2 months along. The baby should come in November." He picked her up and spun her around, then immediately set her down looking worried. "Sorry, I should not have done that. Are you feeling all right? Any sickness?" "Some, but not as bad as with Kyle. I feel good, Kellen, happy." "Another baby. Kyle is going to be a big brother." He laughed, shaking his head in wonder. "Our family is growing." This pregnancy was different from the first. Natalie was less afraid, more confident in what to expect. She also had Kyle to keep her busy, which meant less time to worry about every small thing. The morning sickness passed quickly, and by her 4th month, she felt better than she had in weeks. Summer was hot that year, and being pregnant in the Arizona heat was uncomfortable. Kellen rigged up a system to bring cool water from the creek, and Natalie spent the hottest parts of the day sitting in the shade with Kyle, reading to him or playing simple games. By fall, as she entered her 8th month, she was large and uncomfortable, but still healthy. Kyle, now 20 months old, was fascinated by his mother's changing shape. He would pat her stomach gently and say, "Baby," one of his handful of words. "That is right, sweet boy," Natalie would tell him. "Baby, your little brother or sister." November arrived cold and clear. On the 10th day of the month, Natalie went into labor. It was faster this time and easier, as Emma had predicted it would be. By evening, they had a daughter, small and perfect, with Natalie's dark eyes and a hint of reddish hair. "A girl," Kellen breathed, holding his daughter for the first time. "We have a daughter." They named her Kate Natalie Lawson, and she was welcomed into the family with joy. Kyle was initially suspicious of this new person who took up so much of his mother's attention. But within days, he was trying to help care for her, bringing her toys, singing to her in his toddler voice. The months after Kate's birth were chaotic but happy. 2 children under 2 years old kept both Natalie and Kellen constantly busy. But they worked together as a team, supporting each other, sharing the load. Emma continued to be a godsend, coming by regularly to help and bringing her wisdom and experience. The Morris family had become like grandparents to the children, doting on them and providing support when needed. As 1886 progressed, the ranch continued to prosper. Kellen hired a young man named Thomas to help with the cattle work, which took some of the pressure off him and allowed him to spend more time with his growing family. The cattle herd had grown significantly, and they were earning enough to be comfortable, even to start saving for the future. Kate was an easier baby than Kyle had been, content to be held or to lie on a blanket watching the world around her. Kyle, now a rambunctious 2-year-old, was constantly moving, constantly exploring, constantly asking questions with his expanding vocabulary. One evening in late summer, as they sat on the porch watching the children play, Kellen turned to Natalie. "You remember that night I found you in the desert? 2.5 years ago now, I remember. I was so lost, in every sense of the word. And now look at us. We have 2 beautiful children, a thriving ranch, a good life. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to believe it is real. It is real. It is our reality, the one we built together." She leaned against him, watching Kyle chase a butterfly while Kate sat on the blanket, chewing on a wooden toy. "You know what I remember most about that night?" "What?" "The moment you said you had been hoping I would tell you about the baby. I had been so afraid, so certain you would be angry or feel trapped. And instead, you said exactly what I needed to hear. You have been doing that ever since, Kellen. Saying and doing exactly what I need. You make it easy to love you." He kissed her temple. "Both of you, all of you, this whole family we have created." As the sun set, they called the children inside for dinner. Kyle came running, chattering about the butterfly he had seen, while Kellen scooped up Kate. Inside their home, warm and comfortable and filled with the evidence of their life together, they sat down to eat. After the children were in bed, Natalie and Kellen sat by the fire, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "Are you happy?" he asked, the same question he had asked many times over the years. "Blissfully happy," she answered. "Every single day." As 1887 arrived, Kyle turned 3 and was becoming more independent, wanting to help his father with ranch work. Kellen patiently taught him small tasks: how to collect eggs from the chickens they had acquired, how to brush the horses gently, how to check the fence for damage. Kyle took his responsibilities seriously, proud to be helping. Kate, now over a year old, was walking and babbling constantly. She followed her big brother everywhere, wanting to do whatever he was doing. The 2 of them together were a handful, but they brought such joy to the household that even on the most exhausting days, Natalie could not imagine life any other way. In spring, they received an unexpected letter. It was from Natalie's younger sister Melissa, who had always been the rebellious one in the family. She wrote that she had convinced their parents to let her come visit Arizona, ostensibly to see the territory with an eye toward teaching positions, but really because she wanted to meet Natalie's family and see the life her sister had built. Natalie was nervous about the visit, but also excited. She had not seen Melissa in years, and she missed her sister despite everything. Kellen assured her it would be fine, and they prepared for the visit, cleaning the house thoroughly and preparing the spare room. Melissa arrived in June, stepping off the stagecoach in Kingman looking dusty and tired but excited. She was 23 now, a young woman rather than the girl Natalie remembered. The sisters embraced, both of them crying. "You look wonderful," Melissa said, holding Natalie at arm's length. "Motherhood suits you." "Come meet everyone," Natalie said, leading her sister to where Kellen waited with the children. Kellen was polite but reserved, clearly unsure what to expect from Natalie's family after the cold letter from her parents. But Melissa was warm and friendly, immediately charmed by Kyle and Kate, asking intelligent questions about the ranch and seeming genuinely interested in their life. During her 2-week visit, Melissa fit seamlessly into their daily routine. She helped with the children, learned about ranch life, and spent hours talking with Natalie about everything that had happened since they last saw each other. She was honest about their parents, explaining that they were proud people who did not admit when they were wrong, but that they had softened somewhat about Natalie's choices. "Mother asks about you," Melissa said one evening as they sat on the porch. "She will not admit it, but she regrets cutting you off. She keeps the letters you sent on her bureau, and I have caught her looking at them." "Do you think she will ever reach out?" Natalie asked, Maybe. In time. You know how stubborn she is. But seeing what you have built here, seeing how happy you are, I will tell her. Maybe it will help. On the day Melissa left to return to Boston, the sisters clung to each other. Come back and visit, Natalie said. Or better yet, move out here. There is a teaching position open in Kingman. Melissa laughed. Maybe, I will think about it. But regardless,
This
I will
story
not
was
lose
posted
touch
on the
with you
channel
again.
The Rusty
I
Saddle.
promise.
Please do not repost
After
it in
Melissa
any
left,
form.
Natalie felt a sense of closure she had not known she needed. Her sister's visit, her acceptance and approval of Natalie's life, it healed something that had been broken when her parents rejected her. The summer passed quickly, as summers do when you are busy in content. The ranch continued to thrive, and by fall, they had saved enough money that Kellen was able to buy more land, expanding their property significantly. We are going to need more help, he told Natalie one evening. The ranch is getting big enough that Thomas and I cannot manage it alone. Then hire more help. We can afford it now. They hired 2 more ranch hands, young men eager for work and willing to learn. With the extra help, Kellen was able to spend even more time with his family, something he had been wanting. That winter, Natalie realized she was pregnant for the 3rd time. She was 28 now, Kellen was 32, and they had been married for nearly 4 years. It felt like both forever and no time at all. Are you sure you want another? Kellen asked when she told him. You have been through so much already. I am sure. I told you I want a big family, and besides, I am healthy and strong. This is what we do, Kellen. We build our family. This pregnancy was smooth, and in August of 1888 they welcomed another son. They named him Matthew, and he completed their family in a way none of them had expected. With 3 children now, their house was full of noise and laughter and constant activity. Kyle, now 4, was a responsible big brother to both Kate and baby Matthew. He helped his mother with the younger children and worked alongside his father on the ranch. Kate, at 2.5, was full of personality, chattering constantly and getting into mischief. And Matthew was a calm, easy baby who seemed content with whatever was happening around him. As 1889 arrived, Natalie took stock of her life. She was 29 years old with 3 children and a husband she loved more with each passing year. They had a thriving ranch, good friends, and a life filled with purpose and meaning. The girl who had been lost in the desert, terrified to reveal her pregnancy, seemed like a lifetime ago. One spring evening, as they celebrated their 5th wedding anniversary, Kellen gave her a gift. It was a small wooden box, intricately carved. Open it, he urged. Inside was a folded piece of paper. She opened it carefully and found it was the marriage certificate from their midnight wedding 5 years ago. I thought we should frame it, he said. Hang it on the wall to remind us where we started. We have come so far, she said softly, tracing the signatures with her finger. We have. And we are going to go so much farther. We have our whole lives ahead of us, Natalie. Our children will grow up here, and maybe someday they will have children, and this ranch will be their legacy. Everything we have built will be theirs. They framed the certificate and hung it in the main room, a reminder of that night when everything changed, when fear turned to hope, when 2 people became a family. The years continued to pass, each one bringing its own challenges and joys. Kyle grew into a capable young man who loved ranching as much as his father did. Kate proved to be brilliant, constantly reading and learning, and Natalie taught her everything she could, passing on her love of education. Matthew was quieter, thoughtful, with a talent for working with animals that impressed everyone. In 1895, Melissa did move to Arizona, taking the teaching position in Kingman. She visited the ranch regularly and eventually married a local merchant, settling permanently in the territory. Her presence brought Natalie joy, a connection to her past that felt healthy rather than painful. Through the years, Kellen and Natalie's love only deepened. They weathered droughts and storms, economic downturns and hard winters. They celebrated births and mourned deaths, including the loss of Samuel Morris in 1898, which hit them both hard. Emma continued on, a constant presence in their lives and a beloved grandmother figure to their children. As the new century approached, Natalie and Kellen found themselves in their 40s with adult children, and a ranch that had become one of the most successful in the region. Kyle had taken over most of the daily operations. Kate was teaching in Kingman just like her mother had before her, and Matthew worked alongside his father and brother on the ranch. One evening in the summer of 1900, Natalie and Kellen sat on the porch of their home, now expanded and improved over the years, but still essentially the same house Kellen had built before they married. They were watching the sunset, as they had done countless times over their 16 years together. Kyle mentioned he is thinking of proposing to Sarah, Kellen said, referring to the daughter of a neighboring rancher. I know. She is a lovely girl. They will be happy together. And Kate received another letter from that doctor in Prescott, the one who has been courting her. He is persistent, I will give him that, but Kate is not ready to settle down yet. She loves teaching too much. She is like her mother, independent and strong. He took Natalie's hand. We did well with them, did we not? We did. All three of them are good people, kind, hardworking, honest. That is all we could have asked for. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then Kellen spoke again. Do you ever think about that night when I found you in the desert? Sometimes. Usually when I am watching the children, or when something happens that reminds me of how different my life could have been. Do you have any regrets? She turned to look at him, this man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. He was older now, his hair streaked with gray, lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun. But he was still the same man who had dropped to one knee in the desert and promised her everything. Not a single one, she said firmly. Every choice I made led me here to this life with you. How could I regret any of it? I love you, he said simply. As much today as the day we married, more even, I love you too, forever. As the sun set on another day, they sat together on the porch of their home, surrounded by the life they had built, the family they had created, the love that had sustained them through everything. The ranch spread out before them, solid and real, a testament to hard work and determination. Their children were healthy and happy, making their own ways in the world but always coming home, always part of the family. The next few years brought more changes. Kyle married Sarah and built a house on the southern part of the ranch property. A year later, they had a son, making Kellen and Natalie grandparents for the first time. The joy of holding their grandson, seeing their son become a father, was unlike anything they had experienced before. Kate eventually did marry the persistent doctor from Prescott, moving there but visiting regularly. She continued teaching even after marriage, a modern woman making her own choices. Matthew found love with a girl from town, married her in a simple ceremony and brought her to live on the ranch where she fit in perfectly. More grandchildren came, and the ranch continued to prosper. Through it all, Kellen and Natalie remained the foundation, the heart of the family. They were the ones everyone came to for advice, for comfort, for wisdom. Their love story, the tale of how they met and married, was told and retold to the grandchildren, becoming family legend. In 1908, they celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary with a huge party. All three children were there with their spouses and children. Melissa came from Kingman with her family. Emma was still alive and spry at 83, and neighbors from all over the valley attended. It was a celebration not just of their marriage, but of everything they had built together. That night, after everyone had gone home or to bed, Kellen and Natalie walked out to the spot where the house stood, the place where Kellen had shown her the property for the first time all those years ago. 25 years, Natalie said, leaning against him. It seems impossible that so much time has passed. The best 25 years of my life, Kellen said. Every single day with you has been a gift. You remember
This
what
story
you
was
said
posted
that
on
night
the
in
channel
desert,
The Rusty
when I
Saddle.
told you
Please
about
do
the
not
baby.
repost
I
it
said
in
I
any
had been
form.
hoping you would, and I meant it. I had been praying for exactly that, a reason that you would have to be mine, a reason we could start our life together right away. I was so afraid that night. I thought you would reject me, reject the baby. I thought my life was over, and instead it was just beginning. He turned her to face him, cupping her face in his hands. We have had a beautiful life together, Natalie. We have raised 3 wonderful children, built a successful ranch, loved each other well. I could not have asked for anything more. What do you mean, could not have asked? We still have years ahead of us. She smiled up at him. We are going to watch our grandchildren grow up, maybe even see great-grandchildren someday. God willing, he agreed. And every day I will wake up grateful that I found you that night, lost in the desert. Every day, I will thank God that you trusted me with your secret, that you said yes when I asked you to marry me. They kissed under the stars, 2 people who had found each other against all odds, who had built something lasting and real. Behind them, their house glowed with warm light, filled with sleeping grandchildren and their grown children. Around them, the land they had worked stretched out in all directions, prosperous and well-tended. As they walked back to the house hand in hand, Natalie thought about the girl she had been, 25 years ago, walking lost in the desert with a secret that terrified her. She thought about how Kellen had appeared like an answer to a prayer she had not known how to form. She thought about their midnight wedding, the birth of their children, the years of hard work and harder times and beautiful moments that made it all worthwhile. She thought about love, real love, the kind that lasts and grows and changes but never diminishes. The kind of love that builds families and homes and legacies. The kind of love she had found with Kellen Lawson on a desert night in 1883. "What are you thinking?" Kellen asked as they reached the porch. "I am thinking about how blessed I am, how blessed we are." "I think about that every day," he said, opening the door for her. "Every single day." They went inside together, into the warmth of their home, surrounded by the evidence of their life together. And as they climbed into bed, wrapped in each other's arms as they had been for 25 years, Natalie whispered, "I love you." "I love you too," Kellen whispered back. "Forever." And it was forever. They grew old together on that ranch in Arizona, watching their children and grandchildren thrive, always surrounded by love and family. They celebrated 50 years of marriage in 1933, an incredible milestone, both of them healthy and still deeply in love. The ranch passed to Kyle, who ran it with the same dedication his father had shown. Kate's children became teachers and doctors, continuing her legacy of education. Matthew's children were ranchers through and through, working the land with the same love their grandfather had. Through the Great Depression, through wars and changes and challenges, the family held together, the foundation that Kellen and Natalie had built remaining strong. The story of their love, of the cowboy who had been hoping to hear about a baby, of the midnight wedding and the life they built together, was passed down through generations. Kellen passed away peacefully in 1936 at the age of 71, surrounded by his family in the house he had built with his own hands. Natalie held his hand as he took his last breath, telling him she loved him, thanking him for the beautiful life they had shared. She lived 3 more years without him, years filled with grandchildren and great-grandchildren, years of sharing stories and wisdom and love. When she passed in 1939 at the age of 79, she was buried next to Kellen on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their gravestone was simple, just their names and dates in one line. He hoped, she trusted, and together they built forever. The ranch continued, generation after generation, a testament to what two people could create when they loved each other truly and completely. And every time a family member faced a difficult decision, or a scary moment or uncertainty about the future, they would remember the story of Kellen and Natalie, of the cowboy and the school teacher who found each other in the desert and built something beautiful that lasted long after they were gone. Their love story became legend, but more than that, it became foundation, proof that love could conquer fear, that hope was more powerful than doubt, and that sometimes the most terrifying moments in life led to the most beautiful outcomes. And somewhere in heaven, or wherever souls go when they leave this earth, Kellen and Natalie were together again, finally reunited, their love eternal, their story complete but never really ending, living on in every descendant who carried their blood, every person who heard their story and believed in love again. The ranch they built still stood a century later, still in the family, still thriving, a monument not just to hard work but to love, real love, the kind that builds legacies and changes lives and proves that sometimes the very thing we fear most to reveal is exactly what the other person has been hoping to hear.